We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Suzy Prudden, and welcome to Mastermind Live with Suzy Prudden on LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk. And I'm here today with my good friend and colleague, Julie Orloff, who is a psychotherapist. She's an executive coach. She's the author of The Pathway to Love, and she's works with relationships. And Julie, tell us about your work, your book, and tell us about you.
Okay.
Tell us about you.
All right, will do. All right, so we'll start with me, and then we'll
start with you.
Then we'll work into the relationships and the pathway to love.
Okay.
So, I have worked as a psychotherapist for actually, I think, going on 25 years now, and started my career in clinical social work. And I had a private practice, and I still have a private practice, and I've seen clients for years. And at some point along the way, I realized that it was important to take my work and expand it. So I actually went into the workplace. I really actually went back to school and got a degree in organizational leadership, which is where the executive coaching comes in. But I did a lot of change management, leadership development, team building, all those kinds of things in the workplace. And then over the years, between working with people in their personal lives and working with people in their work lives, what I did is I started to notice that there were some common denominators. Because honestly, people would say to me, they'd say as a therapist, what is it like going from doing therapy to doing business consulting? And I would laugh at them and I'd say, well, it's really the same
Pretty
work.
much the same.
There's a different modality. Obviously,
Right.
I use different language and a slightly different approach, but it's really the same. And so through that, what the common denominators were that stood out for me was all in the area of relationships.
And that is basically any relationship.
Any relationships. And what I came to understand is that every relationship in every area of your life has the exact same predictable developmental pathway. And people were not understanding what that was, number one. And secondly, they really were, they had a misunderstanding about what relationships are to begin with.
Can you explain those two things now?
Yes. I mean, I think people get themselves into trouble in relationships because they expect relationships to be something that they're not. So in other words, we tend to expect relationships to make us feel good. Okay? We tend to expect relationships to solve our problems. We tend to expect relationships to fill up our emptiness. And we tend to expect relationships to somehow be able to be ideal for us when we want them to be ideal for us. And even for those who say, oh, no, I know that's not true, the reason why there's upset in relationships is because deep down, there's still a hope and an expectation that they will do that.
Yeah. And we make something up and then expect the person to be that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When the person is themselves.
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
So what I wanted to do was to help people understand that there are 4 developmental phases that all relationships go through. And when you understand what those are, then you understand what's normal to come up in your relationships so that you don't get thrown. And more importantly, you don't make yourself wrong. You don't make your significant other wrong.
Right.
And you don't make the relationship wrong.
Right. And if you really want to know how to maneuver your relationship, you ought to buy this book.
Well, exactly. Because there's 2 parts to everything.
Yeah.
There's understanding and then there's action.
There's action.
Okay. So
first comes awareness,
right.
And then comes action.
Right.
And if you don't have the awareness, you can't take action. And if you don't take action, the awareness doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. So both are important.
Absolutely.
Right.
In every area of your life.
I'm 100% with you,
right.
Suzy.
Right. Every area, because I focus a lot with entrepreneurs. And so it's like, okay, you have the awareness that you have to pick up the phone. Now pick up the phone.
Right.
I don't want to pick up the phone. Well, then don't go into business. So when you have an issue within a relationship, you have to be willing. I think relationships are work.
They are work, and it's really primarily it's work with yourself.
Yes.
That's really what it is.
Yes.
And I think when you are working with a skilled coach or hypnotherapist or a therapist, consultant, whoever you're working with, you need to be able to work with someone who knows how to work with those resistances, so that you're able to have a safe environment from which you can look inward at yourself.
Right.
And, so in the Pathway to Love, what I did is I laid out what the 4 phases were so that people understand what's normal and what they can expect in each one of those phases. The second thing then is I introduce and give people a very specific process, including tools, so that they know how to work through those normal issues as they arise.
So give me an example of an issue that someone you may even be working with now.
Okay. So, all right. So let's take an example. I'll give you an example of a married couple. Okay, and then I'll also go back and give you an example of someone that's dating, because they're in 2 different places.
And I'd also like you to give us an example of a business situation as well, so people can see that it's in all areas of your life, not just in the significant other type relationship, the dating relationship.
Right. It's in everything. So I was working with this couple, and they had been married, I think, like for 20 years or something, a very long time. And they reached a point where they weren't too sure if the marriage was going to last. And there had been, as everyone knows, in many long-term relationships, a lot of garbage gets accumulated over the years.
Really?
That just and unfortunately, like a lot of times people wait until there's tons of garbage before they reach out to me. But this couple they had a lot of strengths because there was a genuine liking of each other, and they generally wanted the relationship to work. So, but they came to me, and one of the issues that kept popping up is that she would want to talk about something, like something would happen and she would get upset. So for example, let's say the husband was supposed to take the dog to the vet. We'll keep this a simple example. The husband forgot to take the dog to the vet. And so she's upset about this, and she wants to talk about why she's upset about him continually to forget to do things that she's asked of him. And the husband starts to back away. So he doesn't want to talk about it. And so he just withdraws from the conversation. And this is now a pattern that's developed over and over and over again. So when I worked with the couple, we needed to do a couple things. One, we needed to understand why his forgetting to take the dog to the vet was upsetting the wife. How is she communicating that upset to her husband? And then furthermore, why was the husband withdrawing at this point? Because now we had 2 problems. The initial problem was the whole vet issue. Why is he forgetting?
You got 3 problems here.
Well, I'll go through the second one, then tell me what the third one is. Okay, so then the second one is why is he withdrawing from the conflict resolution, from the conflict to begin with? And that's now had become really the more important issue in the relationship. She wants to engage in a conversation. He wants to withdraw from the conversation. So we started to take it apart. Well, actually, I should stop. So what was the third? Is there another one that I missed?
Well, what I heard was 3. One was the dog didn't get to the vet. 2, that she got very, very upset about it, and that was an issue for her. And then he didn't like the issue for her, so he withdrew. So you got 3 situations: the vet, her upset, and his withdrawal.
Right. Well, the dog does need to get to the vet at some
that's
point.
one point.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, no, but his forgetting about it.
Right.
And that happened a lot, is what you said earlier. He would forget to do the things that she asked him to do.
Right. And when you look at the relationship,
passive aggressiveness.
Well, it's a form of passive aggressiveness. You're right. But when you look over the history of their relationship, part of the pattern that got developed was that when he would innocently forget early on, because sometimes people get busy and they forget, So when he would innocently forget, she would pounce on him. And it wasn't a little pouncing, it was a big pouncing. And so he would feel like he failed her. He
Mhm.
failed as a man. He failed as a husband. He failed at, whatever his job was. And that's what kept building up in his mind.
Mhm.
So as the years progressed, so he's learned now that as his anger and resentment and despair starts to increase over time,
It's safer to withdraw.
it's safer to withdraw than to engage in that conversation.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, because he did not have the skills or the know-how on how to hold on to his sense of self and still conduct a conversation about what was going on, his anger and resentment was getting then expressed in a passive way. And thus you can see the perpetual cycle that was getting bigger and bigger and bigger,
Right.
deeper, deeper, and deeper, and they're stuck in it. People get stuck in it.
Yep. So you need a pattern interrupt.
So you need a pattern interrupt. And really, I think what people, the solution is so simple, and yet people get so hung up on it because all we needed to do was to slow everything down, just put everything to a halt. And then I took the wife and I said, okay, because I kind of conduct the conversations first and then role model how they can do it between each other. So it's a nice way to start role modeling and teaching them how to do this themselves. So I'll stop with the wife and I'll say, okay, I'm your husband for a second. I want to just get an understanding. I forgot to take the dog to the vet. Tell me why that is so upsetting to you. I want to understand what that all means to you. And of course, the obvious one that people may say is, well, my dog didn't get to the vet. Okay. But there were a lot more.
Yeah, I would think so.
You start to go deeper and deeper and
Yeah.
deeper. And it was an issue of, I can't count on you. And if I can't count on you, it makes me very insecure. And then we would talk, well, okay, so tell me more about that. What is it about being insecure?
Right.
How does that make you insecure? And then she started to share that when she was a small girl, her parents were divorced, and her dad would make promises to see her, and she would hold on,
And he wouldn't show up.
and he wouldn't show up. Or he would say, honey, I'm gonna buy you, get you that ball that you wanted, or that your favorite record that you wanted, and he would never come through. So for her, it wasn't just a matter of, is someone reliable or trustworthy? It is, am I lovable? Am I important enough that you would come through for me? Or am I just something that's so irrelevant that can be dismissed? And all those wounds would be popping up. So I'm speaking with her, and her husband's, of course, listening because he's there in the session with us. And you could see how his look on his face, his whole demeanor, his whole energy went from being defensive
Yeah.
and ready to defend himself to it softened.
Yep.
And he started to look at his wife in a very different way. He started to appreciate that this is a woman who was very vulnerable, who was very hurt. He understood why he was hurt. And he started to connect the dots in his own mind about understanding who his wife was. And this is somebody he'd been married to for 20 years, and he didn't connect those dots over 20 years.
Yeah. Well, we unless we have the tools, we don't.
Or the information for
Yeah,
her,
exactly.
she hadn't even really connected
Yeah.
the dots.
Yeah, until you had that session.
Right.
Are they still married?
They are still married because it really shifted. It created a whole new world
Yeah.
for them. Because then he started to explain, it's his turn too.
Yeah.
And then we had to talk about, why does he withdraw? And he had the whole thing where he needed to say, look, I need to feel appreciated. I need to feel respected. I need to feel like I'm a man. And when you pounce on me, I feel like a little boy who can't do anything right.
Yeah.
And it's too painful for me. And why would I keep stepping back into that? So for me, it's easier for me just to go away and withdraw and try and figure out how to hold on to whatever sense of self I still have left. And she got how important it was for him to feel safe in being human. And he's, forgetful. And some people are just more forgetful than others. So you really, what it all comes down to, I'm telling a whole story, but what it all comes down to is that people need to share who they really are. It's not about negotiating. It's not about, this is the problem with, I feel, a lot of bad counseling out there, is they really spend a lot of time negotiating okay, I'll take out the trash, you know, if you give me sex twice a week. I mean, there's a lot of negotiating. People deal with this on a transactional level. And don't laugh. Those are some of those negotiations that go on out there. So, and it's not about the negotiation. It's about the
Feelings.
inquiry.
It's the feelings.
It's about the revealing. It's about the
Right.
sharing. It's about the understanding of who each other is. And I tell my clients over and over again, once you do that, it just doesn't matter because the solution becomes really apparent and it just happens. You don't have to fight for it.
And so, how would this kind of situation work on a business level when you were dealing with employer employee or employee when you people working together? Because you're not apt to be as vulnerable as personal when you're dealing in a work situation that you are obviously in a relationship situation.
Yeah. I'll share a personal experience I've had because I think it's a really good example of where our stuff gets in our way and it can sabotage business. So, and I'm going to kind of change things around because I want to, keep confidentialities clear. So, but I had signed a contract with the company. And they were going to provide a service for me. And the contract that I signed was actually rather vague. Looking back, that was one of my errors, was not in getting very clear and precise terms of what this service was actually going to be. And time went on, and we're getting closer to, a date where the service is going to be provided, and I'm starting to get a sense that, okay, I'm not gonna get what I thought I was gonna get. Like one thing was promised to me verbally, and what was starting to show up was going to be something very different. So I called I called the business owner, and so the first thing that he did is he put me off to somebody else, which is fine. That's okay, And then I called that person and I expressed my concerns, and I said. And she assured me, she actually was great. So she said, you know what, we're going to make this right for you. I think you're going to be happy. We'll do what it takes to make you happy. And everything I felt okay about it. So then we get to the day or the day before the service, and there's some other things that are also going wrong. And I talked to the business owner again. And what happened is that he got very reactive. To what my concerns were, my complaints and concerns. And he got so reactive that he said, you know what, contract off. Like, done, we're done. And I was shocked because I felt this was an opportunity to just do some problem solving. And what happened in this scenario, in my assessment, I'm not this person, but in my assessment, what happened was my thinking is that he was operating from a place of fear. He became so fearful that somehow my concerns or complaints was going to hurt his business. His business was in a very tenuous place. And he was so concerned because I was verbalizing my complaints that he thought I was somehow going to hurt his business and I was someone that should just go away and not so that he wouldn't have to deal with me. Okay. And my sense was, okay, this is an opportunity actually for him to
Fix it.
Not only fix it, but understand what he can do from this point out.
Forward. Yeah.
To make his business better.
Yeah.
Make his service better, make his customer service better, make his contracts better. I mean, whatever he needed to do, there was a lot of opportunity. And his anxiety and his fearfulness or whatever is going on for him sabotaged that from happening. And I think that happens quite a lot in business. People get scared. And I have to say, and you probably deal with this a lot, Suzy, is that there's a lot of fear going on out there in the business world.
Right now, yes.
A lot.
A lot of fear.
There's a lot of people struggling.
Yep.
And there's a lot of anxiety.
Yep.
and it's showing up.
And business is changing, so we don't have a map of the way to do it. And so people don't really know what they're doing, and I think that that happens in relationship. People don't have a map, which is why I think it's so wonderful that you have this book, The Pathway to Love, because it's a map of how to do relationships so that you don't end up angry, upset, and feeling victimized or brutalized or passive aggressive or whatever is going on. And so this is an amazing map so that people can have better relationships.
Well, if this business owner had read the book and did the work,
right.
The first question would have been, I'm having a really strong reaction to this. I need to stop and figure out what's going on. I always tell people, when you're in a high state of emotions or reactivity, it is not the time
to make a decision.
To make decisions.
No.
And it's certainly not the time to act on them.
Right.
I don't care what relationship
Yep,
you're in.
I agree.
It's the time to stop,
Yep.
take a few deep breaths, and say, okay, let me see what's going on. Is my reactivity solely based on what's happening, or is there other stuff that's getting pulled into the mix?
And the other thing that I do for myself, if I get into that space, is I say, okay, this has nothing to do with what's going on out there. This has everything to do with what's going on in here. What do I need to look at that I'm being triggered by this experience?
Exactly.
I had a very funny experience with somebody who called. We had an appointment set, and I couldn't make it, so I had my assistant call and cancel, and he was furious that I had her call and I didn't call. And so I called him back, and I said, I apologize, I didn't call, but I wasn't available to call. But we did call you, and so I'd love to have that appointment, but he never called me back. Fine. So I see him at an event, and we make a time to sit down and have a conversation. And I'm now in the middle of another conversation at that time, so I call, say I'm going to be 10 minutes late. I apologize. I was 10 minutes late. The guy was insanely livid. And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, I really feel like walking away from this right now, because this is not fun, because he's really mad at me. But I didn't. I stayed, and we continued the conversation and made an agreement to talk on by week, every other week. So one time it's my turn, one time it's his turn. So the last time we spoke, I mentioned this to him. And I said, it was so funny. I said, I almost walked away during that conversation. And he said, that happens to me a lot. I said, you might want to look at it. Mm-hmm. Because if it's happening a lot, what is it that you're projecting? And then he goes on to about integrity and this and that and everything else. I said, your ego is really running the show here. And you might want to give that ego a great big hug. Don't try and get rid of it. But it can't run the show in this case. You have to. And it was a very interesting conversation, especially when he said that happens a lot. And so when I look at relationships, I look at, for myself, what am I repeating that doesn't feel good? And then what am I doing to create that? So I have to shift. It's not about the other person shifting. So what do I have to do?
Exactly. And sometimes the shifting takes place in the communication with the other person. In other words, there's a lot that can be done in terms of your own self-reflection, but my premise is that the real opportunities for growth and healing and transformation are within the context of a relationship with another human being. So again, I think people like to think that there's something really magical, that happens, or there's, you do one thing and it changes your life. What I find more than anything is that it's through that conversation, so that if that other business owner and I had been able to say, these are my concerns, and he would say, okay, tell me more. And even if he shared a little bit, I want to make sure that things go well for you, because this is a really anxious time. I mean, we could have really had a conversation that would have had not only a different income, but would have shifted the way his next conversation.
Exactly, because that will become a pattern, and will happen more and more and more. Just like this other person that I was talking to said, that happens a lot to me.
Right.
So I want to say, if any of you would like to call in and ask Dr. Julie a question, it would be great. 323-247-7443. That's 323-247-7443. Please call us. Ask your questions. I'm sure that many of you have questions about possibly the relationship you're in right now, or the one you want to be in, or the one you don't want to be in. So call us at 323-247-7443. So what caused you to write The Pathway to Love? What was the inspiration?
You know, I just think that relationships are the most important asset we have in our lives. And we struggle in the world of relationships as human beings. And I also felt like more and more and more, there seems to be a disconnect between people. Maybe that's with the advent of so much technology and so much communication is happening digitally. Some of it may just be cultural shifts that are taking place, but I felt like we were losing sight on how important our relationships are and how much we really need each other as human beings. And so much of the time is just spent in conflict and staying stuck in conflict and in power struggles over and over and over again. And I was like, there's got to be a way to help people make a really strong and significant paradigm shift in how they address relationships. I remember working with this couple that were they were entrenched in power struggles. And the woman was struggling with a particular issue where she was having such a hard time letting go of feeling rejected and all this stuff, having a really hard time letting go of this. And the husband was getting very frustrated, and he was just saying, I'm done. Just deal with it. Just deal with it. I'm done. And I said to them, and in particularly to the husband, I said, well, you have a choice. And the choice is you can withdraw and say, I'm done with this. You're going to have to deal with whatever this problem is and this insecurity you have on your own. And that's a legitimate choice, because sometimes you just need to back away and say, I don't know how to fix it, and I'm having trouble staying engaged, or I need a break. I said, you could also continue to just make her wrong, which is partly what he was doing. You don't understand it so that you're going to make her wrong, and you're going to keep defending yourself and your position. I said the third choice is to stop defending yourself. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to withdraw. You can simply engage in a conversation that says, I'm here for you, and I'm interested in understanding why this is so hard for you, period. And when he did that, because he chose that, and all three are legitimate choices, they're just choices, the wife calmed down, and she felt safe in really talking more about what was underneath the surface stuff. Again, it's when you're that upset, sometimes someone's doing something that's really making you upset. So in other words, if you find that your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse is having an affair, you know what? You've got legitimate reasons to be upset, and they're probably related to that actual incident. But if somebody's doing something and you find, God, my reaction is pretty strong.
Like leaving the top off the toothpaste or something like that, or the toilet seat up.
Yeah. Or, or forgetting to, bring something home or whatever it is. Then that's a good, strong clue that there's
something underneath.
There's something underneath.
Yeah.
And there's a huge opportunity for you to clean whatever that is up, and to do it in a context with a significant other or someone you care about actually creates more intimacy.
Right.
Which to me is the goal. I think we're intimate starved in this country, to be perfectly honest. I think people want instant gratification. They want to feel good all the time. And and they have a lot of trouble tolerating vulnerability and intimacy.
We're going to come back. I'm Suzy Prudden. This is Mastermind Live with my guest, Dr. Julie Orloff. We'll come back to talk about relationships in just a little bit.
And every time I thought I got it made, it seemed the taste was not so sweet. So I turned myself to face me, but I've never caught a glimpse how the others must see the faker. I'm much too fast to take that test. Change it.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.
It's gonna have to be a different man. Time may change me, but I can't trace time.
Hey everybody, this is Richard Carr inviting you to join me in the radio boardroom for the new Entrepreneurs Weekly Summit in my all-new day and time. That's right, the new Entrepreneurs Weekly Summit is moving to Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific. So don't forget, the new Entrepreneurs Weekly Summit, now Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively here on LA Talk Live, where it's more than just talk. We'll see you there.
Hey, this your girl, Paris, straight from the Cousins, and you can join us every Monday at 8 p.m. Here live, bring you some great entertainment for those ears, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Julie Orloff, inviting you to join us every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our all-new show, Pathways to Love. Join us as we talk about love and relationships and how you can create the relationships you desire. So don't forget to tune in to Pathways to Love every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio, or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright.
Hi, I'm Suzy Prudden, and welcome back to Mastermind Live with Suzy Prudden and my guest, Dr. Julie Orloff, who is a psychotherapist and executive coach, the author of The Pathway to Love, and you have a book and a workbook and an audio, and it teaching people how to be in relationship. As it's we don't. When I got married, I was 19 years old. My mother told me I couldn't date the boy I was dating, so I married him.
Of course.
What else?
Natural. What else does an 18-year-old girl do?
That's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. We ran away, got married. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. And then I say in my new book that I'm working on now, we were young, stupid, and then in italics I say, and in love. And so I didn't know anything. He didn't know anything. I didn't have a good model of parental model growing up because my parents were divorced when I was very young. And so it was a very, very challenging relationship the whole time until I finally left. I had no tools.
Well, you guys were stuck in phase 2. You never got out of phase 2 is the problem. I can tell you that right now.
I believe you. I mean, I believe you.
Yeah.
So,
and most couples actually live in phase 1 and phase 2.
Well, that's not fun.
No, well, phase 1 is kind of fun because phase
1's the gooey time.
That's the romantic.
Yeah.
I'm so in love.
Yeah.
I can't, think straight.
Yeah.
But you really can't.
No, you can't. You're basically insane for at least 3 months.
In phase 1, but phase 2.
That's why if you're going to sleep with somebody, sleep with someone you know. because what happens when you have one of those nights where you end up wondering who you're sleeping with the next morning. You're in love with them, but you don't have any idea who they are.
That's not true, but you think you do.
You think you do. And I remember
that's the scary part.
Yeah, I know. So
he's so perfect.
Right, and you don't even know his last name. So the one wonderful thing for me was in my very last.
Speak for yourself now, Suzy.
I am speaking for myself. In my very last relationship, which is really quite an amazing relationship, I fell in love with my best friend. So by the time we ended up in bed together, we'd already been best friends for a year. And I remember he used to come to my house every Wednesdays. This is when we were friends. And he would spend the night in a different room. And every Thursday morning, I'd make coffee. This went on for a year. So then he made love one night, and the next morning, I asked him when we woke up, "Do you drink coffee?" And I thought, and he just laughed, because I'd been giving him coffee every week for a year. "Do you drink coffee?" When I finally realized it, I said, "Thank God I know who this man is," because I just asked him the stupidest question because my brain's gone, completely gone.
Well, that's because you jumped into phase one, even though you've known this person for so many years.
I jumped into phase one, even though but thank God I had known him for a year.
Right.
And and we were friends, so that we could laugh at we stayed in phase one for quite a while, which was really fun.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. What I've done with the Pathway to Love, I've laid out the 4 phases of a developing relationship, and they work through different things, but ultimately they take you to profound and deep love and intimacy. And the last phase, the 4th phase, is actually how to create a very transformational relationship with not too many people get to, but if you want, it's completely available to every human being out there on the planet. So
what's phase 3?
Phase 3 is the personal transformation phase. You want me to go? I can go through them very quickly. So let me go through them very quickly.
Before you do, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
So you can work with me in several different ways. My website is julieorlov.com. That's JULIEORLOV.com. You can also reach me through the pathwaytolove.com. Telephone number is 1-888-99-PATHS. That's 888-99-PATHS, PATHS. And there's different ways that you can get this information. The Pathway to Love program actually is available as a at-home program where you get the book, the workbook, the audio guide. You get it in all kinds of formats. You get some bonuses with that as well. There's some bonus interviews and bonus DVDs, and you really can take on the material in your own way, in your own time, in the privacy of your own home and your own relationship. You can also work with me privately, one-on-one. And I tell people a great place to start is to simply go to the website. There's a free relationship assessment quiz. And just click that on, and you can get a take of exactly where your relationship stands today, which phase that you're in.
So if you're not in a relationship, can you take that quiz anyway?
You can take that quiz anyways, and think of any relationship. You are in a relationship with someone. It doesn't have to be a romantic partner. You're in a relationship with your family. You're in a relationship with your friends. You're in a relationship with your coworkers.
I have 2 cats.
You're in relationship with your 2 cats, and they may have trouble taking it, but you can project onto them and
I project onto them all the time.
Of course, that's
anyway.
why pets are so great.
Yeah.
So we project.
I decided to change that. I decided I have before you tell the 4 phases. I had a friend over one day who was a feng shui person, and she was in my bedroom, and she said, "Do you want a relationship?" And I said, "No." She said, "Good. Keep your bedroom exactly the way it is." Because however it was set up so that there was no way a relationship was going to come into my life.
Okay.
So then PK Odell, who is a friend of ours, who is also a feng shui, she's a master. She came in feng shui at my house, and I told her the story, and she told me, well, your air conditioner is in your lonely pillow area. And so every time you turn it on, it blows away any chance you have of having a relationship. And now I've known this, I've had this knowledge for quite some time. And then I was at a group last week, and I told the story because PK was there, and everybody was laughing. And they're redoing all the windows in my apartment building right now. So I could, and I am actually going to do this.
Mhm.
The reason it isn't in the other window is because that's by the driveway, and cars could smash into it. So I'm going to have the person who's handling the windows take my relationship out of my Lonely Pillow window and put it on top of the other window so that, and then I'll be open and see what happens. And the next time I see you, I could be in a relationship.
You could be in phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. We just don't know.
We don't know. We got to start in one of them anyway. So tell us how the phases go.
So phase 1 is called the object fantasy phase, because this is the phase where you fall in love, you get very excited, you're so sure you know who this person is, and honestly, you don't have a clue really who this person is.
The person probably doesn't even know who he is.
Right, well, that happens too. And in romantic relationships, you also have a lot of hormones that are getting released, and those help to give you the illusion that you know, and that this person makes you feel really good. I mean, this is a lot of the time in phase 1 where you think this person is going to make you feel really good, or you become very frightened that the person is actually one day going to make you feel really bad. So, phase 1 is a roller coaster ride because your fears and anxieties start to creep up, but you're also in that really fantasy phase where it just doesn't matter because you're floating.
Right.
So that's phase 1. Phase 2. It's called the self-discovery phase, because this is when the fantasies of who you think the person is in phase 1 starts to subside, and the real person starts to be revealed. And that goes for your new love interest or your significant other, and for yourself. So now things are settling down. The effects of the hormones are going to settling down. And this is where you get a real good sense of your reactivity. What am I reacting to in this person? So the guy who you thought was so easygoing in phase 1, now you think is rude because he's always late. Didn't notice he was late in phase 1, but in phase 2 you notice it, and now you have an opinion about it, and you have a reaction to it. They thought that you were a really great cook. And in phase 2, they discovered you're a really good heat up person and put it in a bowl. Okay. I mean, these are the kinds of things that take place. But this is where the real work begins, because unless you know how to work with the reactivity, you will stay stuck in phase 2.
I was stuck there for 18 years.
No, and you're not alone. Most relationships stay stuck in phase 2, so they vacillate between wanting to go back to the fantasy of who they want the person to be or who they hope the person will be, and then dealing with the reality of who the person is and not really being able to deal with their disappointments and how they're reacting to those disappointments when their expectations are not met and their needs aren't met, or their fears start to feel like they're going to be a reality, that will come to pass. Now, when you take the skills and the tools that I teach you to work through phase 2, phase 3 is a personal transformation phase. And I tell people that this is where real profound love and intimacy lives, is in phase 3. So you get a sense of how important it is to understand that process of phase 1 and phase 2, so you don't stay stuck there. And to give a quick example of what the key is to take that jump from phase 2 to phase 3, because phase 2 is really, the work of phase 2 is to understand yourself and understand your significant other. So you get it, okay? Phase 3, the work of phase 3 is then to accept who your significant other is, to accept and love who you are as a human being. And while we can all say, okay, that's easy enough. Just accept.
No.
Not easy.
Not easy.
Not easy. And we tend to fool ourselves too, because we can say, okay, I accept the fact that I have a significant other that is forgetful. Okay, I'll accept that about them. But then in reality, see, you're still thinking.
It still takes you off.
Well, it still takes you off because you're still thinking it can be different. Like somehow,
well, it can't be.
Somehow I'm going to change the person.
It's never going to happen.
Right. Or somehow that person's going to magically want and can change. And it doesn't happen.
No.
And so you bounce right back into phase 2. So phase 3, when two people share who they are with one another and they really accept who each other is, what it does then, it creates all this space. All this space opens up for healing to occur and for free choice, actually, to become available. In other words, as long as you're in phase 2, whatever's running you is running you. You're not in charge.
Right.
When you move into phase 3, all of a sudden there's choice now. There's real choice.
Well, it's also it's a sigh of relief, I would think. It's like
it's the crux of resistance. In other words, if someone's saying lose weight, you've been in the fitness. You're a fitness guru. If someone says lose weight, someone's going to push against that.
Right.
But if someone
didn't matter how much I weighed.
Yeah.
I weighed 115. I was too fat. Weighed 130. I was too fat. Weighed 110. I was too fat. I was too fat.
And because you're whatever you're fighting
and
against.
And so
war.
It's like that was my constant battle. So I thought I was too fat.
Now, let's say you were able, which you might have gotten to, I don't know, but when you get to the point then where you accept yourself, you know what? I'm perfect just the way I am.
Well, I didn't accept myself till long after I was divorced.
Or you accept that your partner is forgetful. My partner is forgetful, so I can do 2 things. Once you accept it, then you either, if the dog needs to get to the vet, you take the dog to the vet if it's that important.
Well, that's when we used to go to the country all the time, and we had a house in East Hampton, so it was always an argument packing. So finally I thought, okay, I'll pack. Instead of having this argument about which suitcase goes where and which box goes where and which goes where, I said, I'll pack. So I packed. Saved a lot of hassle.
Exactly. And you do it without resentment.
No, because I resented it.
I thought there was a little bit more acceptance that needed to occur.
But actually, I didn't resent it that much. What I resented was the fighting about the packing. So it was easier just to pack. But, yeah.
So that's what really creates the intimacy, is being vulnerable and sharing who you are, and having your partner, your friend, whoever this person is that you're in a relationship, see who you are and accept and embrace who you are. Okay. It doesn't mean that problem solving doesn't take place after that, but boy, it opens up the options. Makes it much easier. And all these ideas now come out that didn't occur because all the energy was spent trying to change one another.
Yeah, it won't happen.
No, and it's just exhausting. That's why people are exhausted.
I remember in the relationship that I had with the man who was my best friend. One day he was at my house and we were leaving for someplace, and I started to do something and I was 10 minutes late. And he says, "You're late." And I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm always early." And I said, "I'm always late." That was the end of it. He knew, expect 10 minutes late. And I always knew, expect 10 minutes early. And so then my sister and I have the same thing. She was born 6 weeks early. I was born 12 days late. So we're consistent. She's always early. I'm always late. And we know this about each other, and so we plan on it. So if we say we're leaving at 10, we know that she'll get there at 10 of, and I'll get there at 10 after.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's no argument anymore about it.
No, and you get to enjoy the relationship.
Yeah, and I'm getting closer to 10 now.
Yeah, there you go. Very good.
Because there's no more pressure.
That's right.
See, as long as you have that pressure, then it's almost an in spite of.
Exactly. So then the key to phase 4, which I tell people is like the ultimate prize, because that's where you create a transformational relationship, is when you and your significant other sit down and you actually define the relationship. In other words, you assign values and traits to the relationship as if it's a living, breathing entity in and of itself.
It is.
Which it is. So when you sit down as a couple and say, okay, here's our relationship, and this is how we see our relationship. These are the traits that our relationship has. And this is where our relationship wants to go. So in other words, you're really creating a vision.
It's like creating a snowman.
It's or a business plan for that matter. It
Well,
really
with the eyes and the nose,
Right.
And then what would you like the relationship to look like?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what do we want to pull from?
Right.
That's out in our environment or that's from each of us that creates what this relationship is. And then you have a vision for that relationship. And so the relationship has a direction. It has its own goals. It has its own need to evolve in a certain way. And then you take your decisions and your actions and you apply them to the needs of the relationship first and not the needs of the two individual people.
So you could take and draw a mind map where you draw a circle, you put relationship, and then you draw lines out of the qualities of the relationship and all the different things that you want, and then you focus on that. I like that. Focus on that first rather than me first or you first.
Well, and what happens because we're really very egocentric and we tend to want to make sure our needs get taken care of, people get scared. Well, if I choose the relationship's needs, what's going to happen to my own? And what I tell people and reassure them over and over again is that when you honor the relationship's needs first,
Yeah.
your individual needs get met in ways that you would have never imagined or asked for in the first place. It becomes magical and transformational. And you have to have a sense of trust and a leap of faith to do that. And I tell people, well, you have certain needs. You can choose the relationship's needs or you can choose your ego's needs. Which one do you want to choose? You can choose either one, but
Right.
they're gonna have different results.
They'll have different consequences.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
have a caller. Great. Caller, please announce yourself and who would you like to speak to?
Yeah, I'm Todd.
Hi, Todd.
Hi. Hi, how you doing? I'm glad that you sent me
Can you turn down your radio in the background, Todd, because we can hear it and we want to hear you.
Yeah.
Thank
Is that
you.
better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you gave me the link to listen to this. I tend to sabotage my relationship because of lack of having the self-confidence of what you just talked about. Because what I would really like in my relationship is to end up in phase 4 of what you just talked about. And it seems like I'll sabotage it way in the beginning because of not having the self-confidence to get through 2 and 3. If what I'm hearing, what you're saying is right.
Well, my question to you would be, when you say you're lacking the self-confidence, what do you think you're not doing? Like, are you not having the conversation? Are you not able to really share what's really going on with you? What do you think that's about for you?
I think it's both of those.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a fear of rejection
Mm-hmm.
going on, fear of I'm in a long-distance gay relationship, and we're together probably once every couple weeks, and then I was going through a lot of very strenuous stuff in my life in Las Vegas, and trying to navigate that, and at the same time still be in a relationship. And it just, I ended up sabotaging my relationship, which is not what I want to do. The guy that I want to be sells out before, you know what I'm saying?
Well, here's what I would suggest, and let me just say this. It is really scary to be vulnerable. And when we feel attached to somebody, and we don't want to lose that, and we don't want to lose the love that we feel from that relationship, it increases the fears. So there's 2 things going on. There's just the fear of being vulnerable to begin with and being so exposed, and then there's a fear of losing someone or something that we now have an attachment to. And what I tell people is that there's 2 hurdles to cross with that. One is you have to get to the point where you love yourself enough that you don't have to apologize for who you are to anyone. You know, that really working on that sense of self-love where you're able to be at, with who you are and express who you are and not feel like there's anything to apologize. The second thing I have to say is really a tough one for people. And I tell the people that I coach, whether it's in person or on the phone or however we do it, is that it's really important to release your attachment to the outcome. In other words, we cling on to something as if our life depends on it. And when we do that, we give our power away to whatever that is, whether it's another person or whether it's a relationship or it's a job or it's a house. So what I would suggest is that you get a sense, get yourself anchored enough that you want the relationship to work, and you'll do what it takes to work towards that goal. But you release the attachment to if something is really going to happen or not. I would suggest a couple things. If you go on the website and you look at the Pathway to Love program, there's a couple things. You can download the Pathway to the Love program today, instantly, and you can get started on working on this journey. It gives you that step-by-step process. I walk you through it, through the workbook and the audio guide. The other thing is that I also have a special offer that's a gold package that includes an hour of coaching for me at 50% off, which is very valuable. You're getting a really good deal. So you also might want to take a look at that. You get the program, and then you get a follow-up hour coaching with me. So I want to encourage you to really get comfortable enough to know that you are lovable and you are just fine just the way you are, and you don't have to apologize for that to anyone.
And also, Todd, everybody who listens gets an opportunity to have a free half hour with me. If you call my office, write this down at 310-640-8885. So just imagine you get a free half hour with me. You get an hour with Julie. You're going to be, really feeling good about yourself. Really feeling good about yourself. And it's wonderful to feel good about yourself. So my phone number is 310-640-8885. And once again, Julie, where does he go to get the Pathway to Love?
You go to julieorlov.com, JULIEORLOV.com, or you can call it 888-99-PATHS.
And you're terrific just the way you are. You're terrific just the way you are. That's an interesting concept because most people don't get it, that they're perfect just the way they are. We've been brought up to believe that we have to be other than who we are, that we're not good enough, that we're not smart enough, that we're not whatever enough, tall enough, short enough, fat enough, thin enough. And so our focus very often goes to that place, so that when we're in a relationship, very often our not good enough is running us. And that can be terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if people would understand, we're all walking around wounded. Okay?
We're all walking around wounded, and we don't have a clue what we're doing.
And we're lost in it.
Right.
And so we try and grasp at different things that we can have to anchor ourselves so that we can move along the way. And if you understand that everybody's wounded, nobody's better than anybody out there. We all and everybody's feeling vulnerable, just like Todd is or whoever is.
Right.
It kind of dissipates a little bit some of the what you think is at stake.
Just look in the mirror and say, "I love you." And the chatter begins. I'm Suzy Prudden. This is Dr. Julie Orloff. You've been watching and listening to Mastermind Live with Suzy Prudden on LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.